Sustainability Commission, our monthly meeting for December 2020. I want to start. I am Amy Delac. I'm the chair. I want to start with a brief acknowledgement of the fact that we are, I think, probably all meeting tonight on lands that have belonged historically to the Adena, Hopewell, Fort Ancient, and Shawnee people. And with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll start with a brief roll call of attendees and guests, and then we'll move on to the agenda. Paul is closest to me, so go ahead, Paul.
Hi, everybody. Paul Logue. And real quick, Amy, Jasmine is in the attendees. I'm not sure if Scott can move her in there.
Okay, I will also forward her, because I have it up, I'll forward her the panelist email.
Looks like she's popping in here.
Okay, good.
Okay. I'm Paul Logue, planner for the city, Sustainability Commission member. Hi, everybody.
Hi. Megan next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan, and I'm part of Rural Action on the Zero Waste team.
All right. Sarah.
Hey, all. Sarah Conley-Ballou, Rural Action Program Director, Sustainable Energy Solutions, Commission member, and snow enthusiast.
Me too. Sam.
Hi, everybody. Sam Crowell, Athens City Council, 3rd Ward representative. Very happy to be here.
All right. Who else? Austin.
Hi, folks. I'm Austin Babro. I'm a retired OU professor. I used to teach classes in environmental communication, among other things.
Okay.
Commission member.
Elaine.
Elaine Getz, Director of Energy Management and Sustainability at Ohio University.
Jasmine.
Hello, I'm Jasmine Fakoon. I have a new title. I am the Bailey's Trail System Program Assistant for Rural Action, at least through the next year or so.
Great, congrats.
Thank you.
All right, we have Scott and the government channel on providing us support tonight. It looks like we have Lauren Connor. Can you introduce yourself, or are you on?
Hi, I'm Lauren Connor. I'm an urban planning senior student, and I'm Paul Logue's intern. Great.
And then looks like maybe we have a few guests. Someone named Alexandra is a guest. If we can't hear you, hello, Alexandra, and welcome. Now, is Abby no longer on the commission? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And we are in need of a student then now, right?
Just quick, Abby Rajam is officially graduating in the spring.
Oh, okay.
So even though she's doing all of her final stuff, and Elaine can chime in here when I have this wrong, this semester she won't actually be getting her paper or whatever until the spring. And I have not talked to her about her plans for the commission. Elaine, have you?
Well, actually, I have, and she was concerned that the bigger problem is that she no longer lives in Athens. So she's moved to Dayton now. So she didn't know if she could stay on the commission being a resident of Dayton. They bought a house and moved to Dayton. So I think she was happy to stay on, but she wasn't sure that was allowed.
Okay.
She can, as long as she's serving the student seat, she can. Doesn't matter if she's living in Athens or, in fact, there's a few members of the commission that by ordinance are allowed to live outside the city limits, and I think Austin and Jasmine and Sarah, all three of them don't live in the cities. Maybe Megan as well.
Paul, she won't be an enrolled student next semester.
Oh.
I think we should probably, Amy, look to find
another student.
Amy, if we need her for something, can probably still chime in.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. If anyone has leads, I might have a lead. I will have to talk to somebody about that. And then we are also missing Stefan tonight, but we are pretty much very well. We're definitely a quorum and close to a full house. So let's go ahead and start with the disposition of the minutes from the October meeting, which you should have in an email from Paul. I was not at that meeting, so we will need someone else to move and second that, because I can't vouch for the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Okay.
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Great.
Nice.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none. Okay. Looks like our next meeting date will be January 6th of 2021. Does that work for people, or are folks still on holiday break at that point?
I will not be available for the January 6th meeting.
Okay.
Don't move it on my account. Just
Okay.
What's holiday break?
It's this mythical thing, Jasmine, that graduate students don't get to participate in.
Works for me.
Okay, great. Well, for now, we'll plan on keeping it at that date, since that is the advertised and usual time. Okay, old business. We have 2 items: backyard chickens and sustainability plan reporting. So for backyard chickens, I think that's Sarah and/or Jasmine.
Yeah, I can take it, and Meg may also want to chime in here, because since our last Sustainability Commission meeting, she and I have been doing some research and inquiries just to sort of learn more about the pertinent information that folks need to know, that our city would need to know, to create a smart and common sense backyard chicken ordinance. And as such, we discussed at last meeting that our goal was to reach out to the current city council members and just ask some broad questions about their knowledge of and interest in backyard chicken ordinance possibilities, and sort of get a sense of what information is needed, and what are some of the barriers or opportunities that we see. So Meg and I sent those emails out. We received responses from 6 of the council members, 4 of whom answered our questions, and 2 said, "We'll get back to you." I know it's a busy time of year, end of year time of year. So, based on those responses, we were able to sort of ascertain that there's interest in learning more. There's some important questions that need to be asked and answered as it relates to the necessary regulations. Chickens are not, there's no ordinance language currently to say whether you can or cannot have chickens, and yet there is a setback rule which suggests that you are unable to keep, house that kind of livestock within 100 feet of your lot line. So that is the pertinent language in our current ordinance that prohibits keeping backyard chickens.
Yeah, the standard lot on the east side is only 100 feet from front to back and narrower, about 50 feet wide. So that does preclude anyone, at least in the main east and west neighborhoods, from having chickens. Some of the technically within the city, but a little farther out, probably have enough property. But it would be a limited number of a subset of the city properties.
Yeah, indeed. And so, the questions that we really zoned in on are in other ordinance language in other cities and communities, they set parameters around what type of chicken you have, the gender of chicken, right? Hens, not roosters. That's pretty commonplace among all of the ordinance language, as well as information about the type of enclosure that's built and the fencing that's needed around the chickens. And so it's also something that we saw across the board with all of the communities that we reviewed. And then beyond that, there are instances where, if there's language pertaining to violations of those terms, and typically it's a minor misdemeanor if one violates those terms. And so that's also, I think, an important thing to consider. Mm-hmm. So I guess I mentioned all of those in context of, continuing to sort of gather information. We also spoke to former councilperson Kent Butler, who had introduced the legislation or introduced the topic of chickens while he was serving a term. And, his input was really valuable in terms of what were the major concerns. There was concerns about poultry-borne illness that can happen if you have if you're close to chickens. Sorry, somebody's coming to my office. It's distracting me. And then beyond that, there was also, I think, in context, the timing of the introduction of that conversation happened during the city's concerns around fracking. And, this concern that we all had that land was going to be purchased and used for fracking in the region. And that became a higher priority. So all of those contexts, I think, created an environment where it was not, people were not really ready and willing to move forward on this type of legislation. It's 2020. We have, I think, a different environment. It's not to say that it wouldn't have certain, challenges that, people may raise. In my opinion, there's plenty of room for conversation about what is and is not a safe way to keep chickens. And so, I feel like it's been really fruitful. We're continuing that research, but so far I think we've learned a lot. Meg, do you want to add anything?
No, I think you really covered it all, Sarah. Thank you.
Have you thought of any or came across any language on the number of chickens? Is that determined by the space you have, or does the city just set a limit? How would you go about even setting a limit on that? I would assume there would be a limit.
Yeah, so we've seen language that says, only a maximum of 3. We've seen language that says up to 10 even in other communities. And so some it's dependent on the lot size or the, enclosure size, and others it's just a flat, limitation. So that's the kind of consideration that I think comes, it might be based on the region.
I have a question. Has anybody ever, it just occurred to me, I don't know if this is that relevant a thing for this or not, but like the care of the chickens themselves, like a standard of keeping them in a condition that's, enhances their health, as opposed to like, it's like somebody like tying up a dog in the backyard and not taking care of it kind of thing. Like they could do the same with chickens, if they're not taking care of them.
Yeah.
Seems like there should be something that addresses their proper care.
Yeah. And are these chickens, does anybody keep chickens for the purposes of meat and not just for laying in the city? Is that something that happens, or?
I would assume it does, though, that's not spelled out in any ordinance language that we reviewed. And to your point, Ed, I think, safe and sanitary conditions for chickens, I think is a high priority. It would seem that there could be language that could, suggest that a healthy living space for chickens is necessary. And then if it isn't being complied with, what are the enforcement rules? And I think that's really where this gets complicated, right? We've talked about how our city code enforcement does have limited capacity. This is not in their current scope of work or wheelhouse. Is it too onerous to ask them to add a inspection process for chicken owners? And that's an open question, I think. If it were to be required that in order to obtain a permit, if there's a permitting process and you obtain a permit and you have an annual inspection, that would be an opportunity to look at the sanitary conditions or not. But short of that, if there is no inspection or enforcement, then there needs to be language that really spells out clearly that's.
I think if it's not overly done,
Mm-hmm.
but like you said, an annual inspection, or like something along the lines, like if somebody was doing something wrong, especially wrong with any of their animals, what's out there, to deal with that, I guess. Something on that level.
It was made by Kent. We talked a while about how if you compare chicken ownership and dog ownership in the community, and if those two were equal, you could point to the fact that there's no regulation around dog ownership. There's no, there is a county dog warden who will, can be called and can, assess violators and take care of abandoned dogs and those kinds of things. But insofar as we don't have specific ordinance language ruling around dogs, how do we need specific ordinance language ruling around chickens? I mean, it's an interesting argument for, how explicit does language need to be around chickens if nearly every person in Athens has a dog and they are unregulated? So
I think the difference is probably the health concerns with the chickens, as opposed to dogs. But otherwise, yeah, I think it could be a lot of just, if you see something, things say something. But otherwise, I don't know that there would have to be a whole lot of other enforcement. I'm not sure.
Cats is another story. They
yeah, don't get me started on the cats.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah, I don't think we would. Without asking our code director, I would have. It seems a bit much to ask them to be inspecting coops and all of those things. Just like we don't inspect dog houses and any of those things either. One comment I recall from years ago on this issue, and I'm not sure if it's a salient issue or not, but one of the concerns we heard from people was the difference between, say, chickens and cats and dogs are that chickens, when they're outside, they attract wolves and coyotes in. And which is, we know that's a common issue in rural areas of Athens County. They're out there. I've got friends up outside of Nelsonville who just lost a whole bunch of chickens 2 weeks ago. I live on the south side, and we hear coyotes almost every night taking the dog out.
Yeah, no wolves.
So I think
but
that was one of the big issues that we kept hearing was that we're just inviting these things into the city. I don't know if that's an issue or not, but that was something that people didn't seem to have a good answer to when we went through this 10 years ago. And again, I don't know if it's an issue, but
I wouldn't worry about that. No, I mean, I'm out in the country. I've got 8 hens and a rooster, and not to say we won't have any issues with predation, but we've been okay. And honestly, there are so many other little animals roaming around everywhere that I don't think chickens will add to that too much. But I think that the other issues are, worthy of conversation, especially the health concerns. So I don't know. I would think that given enough space, enough education, for me, I think that the rewards outweigh those risks, especially as we were talking about before, given food security issues right now and that sort of thing. And honestly, it's been great for my kids. Kids are home and it gives them something to do, animals to take care of. All around, it's been very positive for us to have them. But I think it has to be done right for sure. And there's a lot of considerations to be made. So, yeah.
And I think to Paul's point, those are the kinds of public concerns that would come up in a, public dialogue about this. So to the extent that we can, proactively have responses and, be good listeners, I'm sure Sam can attest to that. That is the critical part of, public discourse. We listen and, really make sure that people's concerns are heard, addressed, and yet not let that stop the process all the same. And so continue if anyone in conversations, offline, anywhere, feel free to collect those kinds of questions and concerns, arguments for or against, and, please share them with Meg and I as we kind of, continue to look closely at this. And in terms of timeline too, we want to make sure we hear from each council member and continue to do that research. It's slowed a bit just because of the holidays, so we'll continue to get that work done into January. And it'll, I guess we'll kind of see when the right moment would be to have more public conversation. Whether there is interest. We talked last time about whether we want to gather kind of a public interest or start a public interest campaign and see how, take the temperature of our community and see if this is something they're interested in. There's pluses and minuses to starting those kinds of conversations, but it also might be the necessary momentum to encourage council to take this issue up and consider it. So,
are there any next steps for the commission over the next month?
Not specifically in my mind. If anyone does want to be involved in the continued research, feel free to reach out and get in touch. Again, let me know if you have any further thoughts, and we'll plan to report back in the next, at the next meeting.
All right. Anyone have any final thoughts or questions on that topic? If not, we will move on to sustainability plan reporting, and we'll probably pick on Elaine for that, to start at least.
Okay, that sounds good. We did have a working meeting back in October, and I think we made some really good progress. I've not really followed up since then, though. Has anybody else worked on any of the sections of the plan? I was just looking, trying to see if there was anything new in our folder.
I think the food section was pretty much covered. And so I didn't think I had anything else to reach out on until we start looking for, I guess we'll be looking for 2019 data next, and then 2020, maybe 2020 data at the same time if people have it.
Yeah. I did have one more thing I needed to gather for the greenhouse gas emissions, and that was the fuel miles that the city had in 2018 and 2019. I might as well collect. Paul, I can't remember. I probably have it written in the notes somewhere where that came from before, but was that something that you helped with? Does the city have just a report?
Yeah, we'll get that, Elaine. Okay. What I wanted to comment on is I think what I said towards the tail end of that working meeting we had was I'll get with Lauren, the intern who's on this call as well, And she and I will kind of wrap it all up, make sure that we've got all the data collected, and then start working on it for the next year as well, just so that we can kind of get a little bit more control over it, while also asking less from the commission members, in my opinion, relating to data gathering and more about the policy creating. I think that's kind of the best thing we can be really working on, especially as a bunch of volunteers. Your time is limited, so your expertise is needed on something besides collecting data, in my opinion. But Elaine, I might need your help though. That being said, because Elaine, you're great with the data.
Yeah, just
and I just want to add, for folks who might be listening or not listening, there has been some chat
just let me
chat
know.
traffic on back on the chickens issue, including the idea of possibly having a pilot. So just to kind of keep folks updated on what's going on in the chat if you're not looking. So sorry, back to you, Elaine.
I think that's done. I think I'm done with that section. I think I think just I'd be happy to get together with Laura and Paul and see what we need, and then we might have to come back one more time and say this any last data or something. But I think we did pretty well with our meeting.
Good. Okay, if there isn't anything else on that, we'll move on to new business, the first of which is the pollinator habitat and planting for the solar array. Is that Sarah again? Or?
Boy, yeah, it's me. Well, I think this might be the first time that, I guess we've talked about this one other time, or I brought it up one other time, but I did just want to make sure that our commission's aware of this exciting opportunity to really put in practice the aspects of the biodiversity plan that include habitat expansion for pollinators, and that there is intention to, and by design, a plan to include pollinator habitat beneath the solar array or series of solar arrays that will be installed at the Athens Community Center complex. As I understand, and I've spoken with the named installer, which is Third Sun Solar, and they're very much committed to that design. My understanding is that this project is to be installed somewhere between March and June of 2021. And so I guess the thoughts I've had on that is, one, we need a vegetation management plan, which would include everything from prepping the site for pollinator habitat to securing the right seeds to, really planning and developing systematically that habitat, because it doesn't just, I'm sure we all know this, it doesn't just sort of magically appear. There's a lot of prep work, and frankly, I think we might have missed our window. From the reading I've been doing, you need to prep soil in the late fall for pollinator planting in the spring. But I'm fairly certain none of the land that's slated to be developed has been touched at all. So I guess I just raised that flag because I want to make sure that for those who are interested in this and want to make sure that we're able to successfully plant and stabilize a long-term habitat, that we're engaged here.
Yeah. Are they in need of resources and direction? I am aware of a number of resources. There's a group called Fresh Energy I think they're in Minnesota, that does a lot of connecting people to pollinator habitat resources. There's, I'm pretty sure both Indiana and North Carolina have pretty detailed step-by-step guides about how to do it. So between those two, we could probably figure out something that would work for Ohio. So I can gather up a number of those resources that I've collected. In fact, I have a for a completely different project. I did a whole bibliography on solar and pollinator habitat. So I can just, do you want me to send that to you, Sarah?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm happy to, be the point person on that. And there's, I guess I'm not sure, maybe Paul, you have awareness of, who the city's point person, whether it's Andrew Cheeky or the mayor.
Andrew's managing the project. At least he was last I had a meeting with anybody about it. Which was over the summer, and it was we were having a few meetings to make sure that they were doing proper design for floodplain management. And I believe Third Sun is the contractor who's designing the system and installing it. And Jeff Greenfield from Third Sun, I know in one of the calls he mentioned that they've done several in the past. Installs with pollinator gardens in them, and so he seemed to be aware of what the basics of what needed to be done.
Indeed, I think he is. And one of the things I'm learning as I do this research is, that what is called a vegetation management plan does have to span the life of the system. That's 30 years. So, and really that should be inked in, the agreements and contracts and the maintenance schedule and the maintenance plan. So it does require, I think, a good level of coordination. Between now and our next meeting, I'll try to get some time with Andrew and with Jeff and just sort of get to understand what resources or how we can support and what they need in terms of support in that regard. But ultimately, I see our commission really tracking the impact of the habitat as it relates to our biodiversity plan. So let's just kind of keep that in mind in terms of that metric.
Yeah. And I just sent you that lit review because it's always better if I do it right away. Don't forget. So it's on its way. If anyone else wants it, just let me know and I can send it to you as well.
Sarah, did you say how large the space was?
How large the array will be?
Yeah, the pollinator habitat, the square footage.
So I understand that it's a distributed system over several sites, and the rule of thumb is it's about 1.4 megawatts per acre.
Okay.
So my understanding is this is to be up to a 2 megawatt system, and I don't have any recent intel on that, so I'm not sure if they finally settled on the size, and I believe they've settled on the footprint in the design. I have not seen it, so I can't say, but I think it's to cover likely an acre to maybe an acre and a half, or up to maybe 2 acres of total land. And there might be some rooftop too, now that I'm thinking about it. I think some is rooftop.
That's awesome. And it'll be patches then. So okay, cool. That's great. Okay.
Any other discussion on that?
It wouldn't be continuous vegetation through it? When you say patches.
I guess what I mean is that the solar will be in several sites on the Athens Community Center campus. So each site would have pollinator habitat beneath, directly beneath and likely in between the ground mount arrays or near it. I mean, there has to be mown area for, maintenance too. So typically, it's a somewhat complicated landscape design so that, you can still get in to manage the system if need be, but you allow for vegetative growth underneath versus gravel, which is it's sort of industry standard for a long time. Yeah, bad.
There's some stuff that grows around here just by itself. That's, it's a staple for, like in the fall, you have the goldenrod and asters, and I hope stuff like that isn't left out of the mix, because that stuff is gold, and people cut it all the time before the pollinators have a chance to stock up for winter, or, get their last hit, and that's kind of like like spring and fall are usually the biggest, gain in pollinator vitality for wildlife. Summer's, a lot slower period for it. Even there might be showy things and stuff like that, which are cool. Especially like butterfly milkweed and stuff like that. But those mass things like that are the best. So just throw that in the mix here. And it's easy to grow. It kind of does its own thing if you let it.
And some of the very low growing clovers might be compatible with being able to get vehicles in, but still not have to have a gravel surface. So that's another possibility. All right, shall we move on to the Ohio EPA EC3 program? I'm not familiar with this, so someone else will have to jump in.
I can just give you everybody a quick, I put that on the agenda. The Ohio EPA has a program called Encouraging Environmental Excellence. That's 3. And the university applied for this a number of times. And in the last round, we received the highest designation, the platinum level, which we're quite pleased with. But we haven't continued to apply every year. But we probably will at some point go ahead and apply again just to update the EPA on some of the things that we've added to sustainability at the university. I brought this up with Paul. Paul indicated that he thought maybe the city had actually done the program that I was discussing with the commission is not the university-based program, but the community-based program. And it's a similar process of showing off what your community has done in terms of sustainability or environmental protection. And then they look at your application and decide what level that you might have achieved. Paul, I don't know if you were able to check to see if we actually had done that, or I'm sure we could do it again. It's been a couple of years.
Yeah, we applied and I can't remember. I think we were awarded honorable mention or something. They asked us to apply. I think it was in 2016, Sam. I'm trying to think. At the time that we applied, Annie Laurie was sustainability coordinator for the university. And I think the university applied at the same time, and we sent out like a joint press release or something like that. I think it was the first time the university had been awarded as well. Sean Beasley from the wastewater treatment plant, Sean and I, or the water treatment, excuse me, Sean and I have talked about it in the past as well, about applying a lot of the things that we thought from a story to tell to OEPA. It really had to do with energy efficiencies with our water and wastewater plants and the amount that we've saved there. We just haven't had the capacity. Sean and I thought to really sit down with it. Sean was pretty overworked, and engineering and engineering and public works is stretched very thin right now because of some retirements and a few other issues there. I'm interested in reapplying in 2021 for it. Actually, I'm not sure. Maybe there's deadlines coming due, and if so, Sam, I'll double check that email.
Yeah, the email was announcing a webinar about the program. So I thought I'd attend the webinar. I think it's next week, just to see if the community process is any different than the university process. But I'll just report back to the commission and see what I learn and what the deadline is, what we might be able to handle for maybe 2021.
Yeah, I put the link.
I'll set the time for that webinar, Sam, and if my schedule allows, I'll hop in on that too.
Yeah, I didn't even know what it was. I just saw it on LinkedIn today and signed up. But yeah, if you guys want to go too, I put the link up. If you want, it's free webinar. It looked interesting.
That's it, though. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other discussion or questions on that? If not, we'll turn to Paul for a comprehensive plan update.
1 second, I'm typing here.
Okay. Getting yourself registered for that webinar?
Okay, so let's see, the comprehensive plan update. I know we've talked about it several times with the commission members, and many of you participate in the comprehensive plan planning exercises and endeavors with it. I gave a presentation to council, I think 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. And I believe council will be putting, and it was a final draft that's been submitted to city council with a request for them to adopt the comprehensive plan, the 2020 plan. I believe it's on track to do that. What's important, I think, for rather than get into a deep presentation about it, I can certainly share a link to either multiple planning commission presentations about it as well as the council's. But there's a few things I would say that the Sustainability Commission specifically just to note. The first of which is we kind of looked at what broad community takeaways, and a lot of these have to do with sustainability, of course. In fact, the plan specifically states that we one of the key things is that we are to be trying to implement recommendations and from the sustainability plan as well as updated endeavors from the Sustainability Commission. So we basically, I took the assumption that the recommendations that come out of this group are going to be the best to move forward when it comes to sustainability efforts. One thing that we really learned just through the process as a whole, and this is one of the key things I told council last week, is that we heard specifically from the community that sustainability is an important component of what they like about Athens and what they expect from leadership at the city, the city's elected officials and the city's administration. We also heard specifically that renewable energy and getting off of fossil fuels and off of carbon are also key features of what the community wants to see for the city of Athens. And that goes for residential uses, but also from commercial uses and government uses, that we'd be moving towards renewable energies across the board. So the good news is, I would say, is that city council's been very supportive of those topics, as have been the administration. And I think we've been really working hard on doing those things. And so it's also nice to know that when we got a lot of positive feedback through the planning process to keep doing that stuff. And I think that's sometimes, I know from my perspective, sometimes it's most important stuff is when we do hear what people think that we're doing well, and that encourages the administration and city council to keep focusing on it. So if anybody wants to see the plan, if you haven't seen the plan, I'll make sure that I'll shoot you guys a link to it. And I don't know if anybody has any questions. I'll put a link to it in the chat.
Has the city gotten any articles in like the Athens News or Messenger lately about either the comprehensive planning process and where it's at, or about some of the various sustainability related initiatives that the council has passed over the past 6 months? I feel like the city may well be in the dark about some of the good work that the council has done.
Yeah, I think you're right, Amy. There's when it comes to local media right now, my thought is that there's been a lot of changes with who the editors are and who the reporters are especially at the Messenger and the Athens News. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it probably has to do with the pandemic, but they have been less engaged, in my opinion, with government affairs over the last in 2020 than they've been in the 12 and a half, 13 years I've been working for the city. I don't think it's because they're not interested. I think maybe they're prioritizing other issues right now. But we haven't seen a lot of, and I'd be curious what Sam's experience is, but I haven't gotten many emails or phone calls from local reporters in the last 9 months. They all have my cell phone, and I make a habit of returning emails and phone calls from reporters to make sure that whatever they're reporting, that they get our side of it. My take on it is as accurate as possible. So, but they just haven't been around too much. Maybe, I'm not sure if they're watching meetings after the fact when we post them online or if they're on our Facebook page or what. But Sam, what's your take on that?
I think unfortunately, and I think most people are aware of this, our local media has changed quite a bit. We are not, our local newspapers are not owned locally anymore. They are owned by the same company. I still am an avid reader of both of our local newspapers, but I think the information covered is quite different, and the outreach, I think, is different too. I don't believe that for many city issues, there are a lot of questions to either city council or to the city administration about topics that really could make the information provided in the articles much more accurate and quite frankly, a more interesting read. So that's unfortunate. I think I don't blame the individual reporters. I think their jobs have changed a great deal, and they're expected to produce many different types of articles. They are more generalists now than specialists in a certain area. So there is some outreach by the university publications, because there are students who are interested in specific topic areas. So I still see some of that, but from
Sorry, I was going to say the New Political student newspaper has done a really nice job with some of the articles they've covered on the Baileys. Jasmine, I know, has worked with them on some of the Baileys stuff, and they might be a good target to try to pitch a story on some of the sustainability initiatives that the city's done. Well, everyone was holed up in their houses for the past year.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with their reporting overall and the stories that they choose to cover. There was a story on the Baileys in the Athens News today. A little off topic. We won't get into it, but check it out.
Yeah, and I'll just note that I have a conversation with Ben Peters, who works for the A News, about the Baileys tomorrow. So I think he's going to follow up on that article. I think he's particularly interested in the funding from Athens City Council and that issue.
That ran today. Is he doing another article on it?
I was surprised by that, because I read that article and then he contacted me for an interview. So we'll see. And I was going to say that the Post just reached out to me to ask me about waste during the holidays. So there are individual reporters who are interested in covering environmental or sustainability issues. I just think that they're fewer than maybe there were in the past. I agree with everybody that this commission and the work that the city does in this regard doesn't get the attention, that quite frankly, I think it deserves. And we could, the comprehensive plan, when Paul presented to city council, it was, very exciting to see some of the confirmation of the things that now granted, I'm in the middle of all this. So I talk to people all the time about sustainability issues, but even when I'm out in the community and talking to people who aren't necessarily tied to sustainability, they're asking about energy. They're asking about what the city is doing in that regard. So I think we do have a community of fairly like-minded people who are concerned about these things. I think the comprehensive plan process showed that these are some of the priorities. So the more that we can talk about this and talk about what the city is doing, I think everybody wants to hear it, and everybody wants to know it and be proud of it. They should be proud of it. All of you should be proud of your work. And so I'm all for it. I wish the reporters called more often.
They sure can.
I think people are paying attention. We're just not getting the media like we used to. But maybe we do need to pitch better.
Yeah.
And maybe something like yeah. What's that? We
send press releases from the Office of Sustainability, and they don't get local press. I mean, all we can do is put it out there and say, here it is, here's great info, and I rarely see it show.
I think it's worth noting, too, though, there's not much of a readership these days. So
true. Yeah.
I think we also want to think about what other ways of reaching our community would be more effective or effective.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah.
Well, I think we have a retired professor who's really who's well versed in some of this. Maybe Austin, at a meeting coming up in the next few months, you could kind of chew on that and think about some recommendations for how we can get some of this to people better.
Well, they say you study what you do worst, so I'm not sure what I'll have for you, but I'll give it some thought.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Now, being mindful of the time, I want to turn to announcements and updates. Wayne National Forest had its monthly update call this afternoon on their planning process. They've got two things in the works that they shared with us today. One, they're in the process of creating a story map that will really highlight the forest they're calling it a virtual tour. And it's if you're familiar with the story map, it's kind of one of the hot new things in technology. But it has, so this story map starts with a nice banner view of the forest, and it has background information, and then it has sort of a virtual tour of each of the 3 units with, I guess, about 10 to a dozen sites within each unit that are of interest, and some background and photos and how to get to them if you'd like to do an actual tour. And that will be available on the Wayne National Forest website as well as in PDF form. If you don't have the download capability to handle a story map, you can view it in a more static PDF. And then the other thing that they're working on is refining their vegetation classifications and ecological community mapping based on some ecological information that's come out in the past few years since the previous map. So they're getting some, trying to get some really good characterizations of their rare and less rare habitats on the forest. Any questions on that or other comments on the Wayne? If not, we can move on to the OU Sustainability and Climate Action Plan public comment period.
All right, so I guess I just wanted to announce, and I tried to just put the links. Okay. Oh, there we go.
There it is.
So we are beginning our public comment period for our 2021 Ohio University Sustainability and Climate Action Plan. It's a 5-year plan. It has 16 sections in it covering, water, waste, energy, buildings, food, transportation, etc. I'm not going to list all 16 of them. We want public comment, so we thought this would be a good place to announce it. If you guys have a chance to go in, and all of the sections are, we have just 8 of them posted so far. We'll hope to have another 4 next week. But you can go into any section you're interested in and click on it and see what goals and targets and metrics we have and how we're planning to evaluate our progress toward our proposed strategies. If you click on the poster or click on the links, depending on which page you're accessing it from, it takes you to a Qualtrics survey with some questions that you can answer. And Megan says the site says it's having a hard time.
Yeah, I got that same error message.
I wonder if I typed something wrong or...
It didn't.
As Elaine said, those are 2 separate sort of sites with 4 of the sections at each of the sites. Hopefully by Monday, we'll have one place where all of the sections are. And as soon as we have that, I'll be sure to send it out to everybody here so that you can provide that feedback. Does that sound good, Elaine?
Yeah. Yep, that sounds perfect. Yeah, we can email it to you guys.
Have you put a link up on social media as well? On your...
Absolutely, yep.
Yeah, and you also
you guys post a lot though, so I'm scrolling.
If you also just go to ohio.edu sustainability, and then you click on, we have one of our top tabs is hubs, themes, and initiatives. You can go to that, and you can go under Sustainable Administration Hub, and they have them listed there. And Infrastructure Hub, we don't have the Living Hub ones up yet, but you can also search by section. So if you go under that hubs, themes, and initiatives, and look at like climate, and you can click on it at the top of that page. So sorry that the link is not working, but and we don't have all of the sections up yet. So, cool. But yeah, it's sort of a big deal for us. We've been trying to get this revised for 4 years now, maybe. And it's been delayed over and over again for multiple things. And our public comment, we're supposed to have public forums in last spring, last April, canceled due to COVID. So this is our attempt to get them all up on the website and have people comment that way.
Nice. Yeah, if you get it up on social media and maybe, because you guys seem to post a lot of cool content, but it gets lost maybe. So if you post it over and over again, I think people are more likely to see it and then repost it from there. It's easier to share than going to a website and then getting a link and all that. That would just be my recommendation.
That's great advice. I will definitely pass that on to our guru, our social media.
Yeah, I don't use social media, so so it's good to hear tips like that.
It's like my whole job right now. So
yeah.
All right.
Okay, so that's it for us.
All right. It is 7:01 p.m., guys. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, we will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded. All right. All in favor? Aye. All right. Have a safe and happy and healthy holiday season, everybody. We'll see you in 2021, which is going to be a better year than 2020. I can almost promise.
who else is knocking on wood right now?